Society and Culture lecture series of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology in partnership with ARETE, with the Coastal Cities at Risk, and the Sandbox Collab, which Alfred and Rexar and Tanya are part of, and I also part of, and with the Rosita Gil Leong School of Social Sciences. I have to get used to it. Yeah. So, welcome, and to this morning, we are very privileged. I have to hunt Mylene Lising because she's very busy all over the place. So we are very fortunate to have a newly minted PhD for speaker. But for now, I'd like to say, okay, so next slide, please. So you see the order. It's the January, we had Dr. Justin C. For the, talking about the enduring allure of hard infrastructure. The reason why we did that is because part of our problem of the flooding of the cities is that the infrastructure planning and implementation just goes ahead without, minding about the highly exposed and vulnerable people, ecosystems, and livelihood bases. We just go and construct the bridges, the roads. For example, like the C6. How many of you have been to the C6 circumferential road? When it was started in 2006, I was the one who was doing the study of the impacts to the poor. They thought that the C6 is a good climate proofing the roads. And I always say, Maylene, you climate proof the roads by raising it, and you make the people there flood prone. And we continue that time. So now in climate work, we're really trying to put together the physical, geological, meteorological hazards and their impacts to the social, political, and economic structures and processes. Now that takes a lot of work because academia is very disciplinarily anchored and driven. So the East and the West shall never meet. While local government and national agencies are sectorally driven. So planners hardly discuss with the human settlements people how floods and displacement of urban poor affect the DRR plans and the like. So by having this, if you look at that, I really want to train new breed of scientists, social, political, and physical scientists to be able to respond of our times. Okay, so this is the start, and then we created the climate society and lecture series. Actually, in Coastal Cities at Risk, I created 2 legacy projects. The Jose Ramon P. Villarin annual professorial lectures on climate and society, because I told Father Jet, nobody understands your climate models. We have to bring it down to them. But then he told me, the other legacy project I also established is the Roberto C. Yap professorial and annual lectures on climate and society, because people never connect climate to how the economy progresses or its progress is debilitated. But Father Jet told me, bakit mo ako ginagawa ang professorial chair? Buhay pa ako. Kaya so I said to him, okay, I'll make a climate lecture and society series. So that, I told him, so that you physical scientists would know that in climate, the social, the political, economic, and the cultural is a very important layer to understand and to intersect, okay? So that's the one on building resilience as reinforcing vulnerability, the enduring allure of the infrastructure as adaptation. Actually, the panelists of last lecture told me the title of it should have been The Enduring Allure of Infrastructure Tick-Box. Anyway, I think so. Next, can I have the next slide, please? So now we are having for this morning a good presentation by Dr. Mylene Lising. I did not know your name is Caroline Lising. Entitled Human Greed, Environment, Exploitation and Extraction and the Case of the Peñablanca Protected Landscape. But before I introduce Mylene and all her accomplishments, I'd like to call on our chair, Dr. Melise Aquitoyo Navarro, to give the welcome remarks.
Good morning to our keynote speaker, Dr. Mylene Lising, our panelists, Dr. Alfred Bablik, and Dr. Butch Xiaosita, conveners of this lecture series, Dr. Emma Porio and Dr. Tanya Udin, esteemed guests, colleagues, and students. So it is with a sense of both urgency and hope that I welcome you to this month's lecture series entitled Natural Heritage on the Brink, Human Greed, Environmental Exploitation, and the Case of the Peñablanca Protected Landscape. This lecture series is brought to you by Department of Sociology and Anthropology and the Coastal Cities at Risk in the Philippines. As we gather here, we are reminded of the delicate balance between human activity and nature, a balance that is now increasingly under threat. The Peñablanca Protected Landscape in Cagayan, with its rich biodiversity and ecological significance, stands as both a testament to nature's resilience and a stark warning about the consequences of unchecked human greed and environmental exploitation. Today, we'll delve into the challenges facing this landscape, from extractive activities to insufficient conservation measures, and reflect on the broader patterns of ecological degradation that endanger our natural heritage. But beyond the problems, we also aim to ruminate and formulate solutions. Our goal is not to merely identify what is going wrong, but to inspire action, action that requires ethical commitment, innovative strategies, and collective responsibility. Gandhi, who challenged the thick notion of scientific rationality and the perception of nature as brute, strongly advocated for a shift to re-enchanted, value-laden view of nature that demands ethical, political, and cultural engagement, not just utilitarian exploitation. Let this lecture be more than an academic discussion, and may it serve as a call to conscience, a reminder that we are stewards of the earth and that our actions today will determine the environmental legacy of tomorrow. Thank you, and may we have a dynamic discussion.
You know, when you're old, you have to be sensitive and look at the structures that might break your leg or your head. No, because I spent my New Year in Davao and I hit my head because a dog was going to attack me. So I ran, and of course, I didn't see the small step. So luckily, my brain is still intact. Anyway, so now we are very privileged today because Dr. Caroline Marie Kento Lising is a newly minted PhD from the, let me see this, from a newly minted PhD from the Cultural Heritage Management of Prehistoric Archaeology, magna cum laude, from the Natural History Museum of Paris. So we are very proud of Mylene's accomplishments. Mylene finished her master's degree and international master in Quaternary and prehistory in natural history in Paris, and then also his MA archaeology in UP archaeological program, AD in interior design, and why she is part of us, because she finished AD Communications Ateneo de Manila in 1990, just as when I was returning. So I was thinking, oh my God, I really feel ancient, you know. So without much ado, I would like to call on Mylene. Mylene is really, I would say, now that I'm doing much work of climate change at the global and regional area, we really need people who are and transdisciplinary and intersectional in their analysis of the key forces that has brought us to this stage of highly unequal world. Okay? Thank you, Mylene.
Thank you very much for your very generous introduction, Dr. Porio. Good morning to everyone here today. Good morning, Dr. Jalcita, Department Head Dr. Navarra, Dr. Olden, Dr. Pavlik, Dr. Fuentes. Good morning to everyone, and to all those who are listening and watching us today. I can use this. So my name is Mylene. As Dr. Porio said, I'm a newly minted PhD. I'm 54 years old. Full disclosure. Also, I'm a native. So I'm going to be talking to you today about natural heritage on the Brink in Peñablanca, Cagayan. On different levels, there are different contexts why I'm giving this talk now. I think top of that is I am from Cagayan. I'm a native of Cagayan. I was born in Tugigaraw. Part of my childhood was spent in Peñablanca. At Calao Caves was my playground when I was growing up. So the title kind of sounds a little bit judgy, right? Human greed, environmental exploitation in the case of the Peñablanca Protected Landscape. Objectivity does not solve our problems. Okay, maybe some. I'll do my best to be objective. So again, full disclosure, I'm not an activist. I am an archaeologist by training, and then I also have training in media and communications and design. So I'm not a climate activist. I'm not militant. Okay. Okay, Ma'am Emma, thank you. Okay, so how do I work this? Okay, can I stay here so I can see what I'm talking about while I'm talking to you? So human greed and environmental exploitation are pushing the natural heritage to the brink. And for today, our case study is Peñablanca. Thank you. Thank you. So for today, our case study is Peñablanca, Cagayan, specifically the Peñablanca Protected Landscape and Seascape. And we will highlight the impact of extractive activities in inadequate conservation. We will also together explore the broader patterns of ecological destruction, what is expected and hoped for in the participation of stakeholders, and strategies for sustainable management and conservation. Okay, so first of all, where is this area called the Peñablanca Protected Landscape and Seascape? It is located in the northeastern part of the Philippines, as you can see there on the screen. It's been designated as a protected landscape and seascape at the national level in 2018, although it was already included in the National Integrated Protected Area System, or NEPAS Act of 1992, and in 2018 it was included in the expanded NEPAS. It covers an area of 1,193.75 square kilometers, and it is managed by the Peñablanca Protected Area Management Board. So Peñablanca is one of the biggest towns in the Philippines. It's not the biggest, or second biggest at least, in terms of land area. What you're seeing here is the rest of the town. Only 6 square kilometers of the town is not included in the protected area. Okay, how do I go back? There. Okay. So as you are seeing here, so you're looking at the eastern coast of Peñablanca, and it stretches all the way from the boundary practically of Tuguegarao, the regional capital of Cagayan Valley, all the way to the coast. So covering a big chunk of the Sierra Madre Mountains and what is known as the Calao Karst system, limestone system. So this is the town of Peñablanca. Does this have a laser pointer? First button, sorry. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Lotus. Okay. So the Peñablanca Protected Landscape and Seascape is actually 118,000, in terms of hectares, it's 118,653.67 hectares. And the river that runs through it is a tributary of the Cagayan River. It's called the Pinakanawan de Tuguegarao, and I've been told that Pinakanawan means the clearest. So on a good day, it looks like this. I took all of these pictures. So yeah, and then in this area, there is a tourist area which is called the Calao Cave and the river. You have here Dr. Trausita when he was there the first time he came. And then this is the river bank on the opposite side of the river, and then this is the inside of Calao, one of the chambers in Calao Cave. So first, let's go to the definition of natural heritage. What is natural heritage? UNESCO defines natural heritage as such: natural features of the environment that are considered valuable for their ecological, scientific, aesthetic, or cultural significance. This includes landscapes, geological formations, ecosystems, biodiversity, and wildlife. It often involves protected areas and national parks, nature reserves, and UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So PPLS, as I'm going to refer to it from this point on, started out as a national park. It was called the Calao National Park. And as you will see, all of these factors described in the definition of natural heritage are present in the PPLS. So going to that definition, if you will look at that definition, there are 4 aspects: ecological, scientific, aesthetic, and the cultural significance, as mentioned by the UNESCO World Heritage document. And all of this you will see as we go on, and I'd like to show you that these values are all present in the Peñablanca Protected Landscape and Seascape. In terms of ecological and scientific, so all of these factors are actually intertwined with each other. For ecological and scientific, there's a lot of research going on the flora and fauna, and every so often they find new species there in the Sierra Madre Mountains. There's always ongoing research on the biodiversity and ecology of the Sierra Madres in the Peñablanca, in the PPLS. So here are some of the few that have been going on through the years. And then in terms of archaeology, there's been archaeological research that has been going on in the caves in Peñablanca since the 1970s. From the 1970s to the 1980s, you had the Early Man project of the National Museum, and then later on, you would have the research started by Dr. Mijares in Callao Cave, which eventually produced the Homo luzonensis, which was identified as a new species of Homo in 2019. And then in 2021, a research group of which I was part, we published the first direct dating of the rock art found in different caves, 11 caves within the karst system, the Callao limestone formation. So this is the part of the Pinakanawan River and the Peñablanca limestone formation that is known to most people, especially the tourists. I already showed you this earlier. Hello. In 2020, we were able to, with the National Museum gave it a protected status, declaring the Callao Cave a national cultural treasure. Right before the pandemic, we had a conference there for Homo luzonensis, and that's when the plaque was unveiled at the opening of the cave. There's so much to do in terms of tourism within the area. So the one that we mostly know about is boating and swimming here in what we call a kargan, and then hiking up here in what is called the Al-Lahiban. And then here, this is the Bat Cave at sundown every day, except when it's mating season. Millions of bats start coming out of this cave. I was just there last week with 30 friends from the business sector, and we waited for that, and thank God they came out even though it was raining earlier. There's no guarantee. And then in some seasons of the year they have another exit, but you're very lucky when they come out of here. So that's actually, it was described by my friends who have never been there as a once-in-a-lifetime event and a National Geographic level event, apparently. To me, it's something that I've been taking for granted. I mean, this is something that I've been seeing since I was young, so okay. Good to know. And then, so this is Callao Cave. You go up 178 steps, and you end up at the mouth of the cave here, where the excavation for Homo luzonensis actually is. And then, in the second chamber, you will find a chapel that was built in 1972 by then Governor Teresa Dupaya, who actually developed the Callao Cave Resort for tourists at that time, across the river, and then of course the cave as well. So in terms of tourism and culture, in terms of aesthetics, if you remember the four values of natural heritage: aesthetics and cultural significance. In terms of aesthetics, it's really breathtaking. Even I, who grew up there, who played there all of my growing years, every time I go, it still takes my breath away. And it does that to tourists who come for the first time, and even those who come for the second, third, and fourth. I have brought so many guests there, including ambassadors and the head of the National Museum, Jeremy Barnes, friends from business, and it just really blows them away. But at the same time, we all realize, especially with the entrepreneurs, how unprepared our tourism infrastructure is for tourism in the 21st century. So, like here you have a Ben French ambassador who's a very serious person, doing his best to participate in our shenanigans. Culturally, it's also where we, the locals of Tuguegarao, of Peñablanca, it means a lot to us because that was our beach. We're like 3 hours from the nearest beach in Santa Ana or Apari. So that to us is where we go to relax, or in the summer to swim, and where we bring our guests when we want to show off our province, our town to them, we bring them there. So in terms of culture, that's its impact on us. Now, what are the effects of human impact on this natural heritage? We're going to be looking at two kinds, extractive activities and inadequate conservation. So I made two general kinds of impact. But I categorize them in two kinds. So extractive activities, people live within this area. Although Peñablanca is sparsely populated, most of the population live within the border with Tuguegarao in Alimanao, and then of course there's the Centro and Tomasi, the two most populous barangays. And then there are so many other barangays along the foothills of the Sierra Madre. And in these barangays, of course, people have to make a living and support themselves. So you have, of course, even though there's already been a comprehensive logging ban and there are no more visible, or what we see regularly, there's no more large-scale logging. Small-scale logging continues on a daily basis, or what we call Carabao logging, so-called because the logs, very small logs now compared to the logs of the 70s, are being pulled by Carabao loggers. And then you have kainin system and people who make charcoal out of the trees, like this. But these are we really going? I'm not judging, and I don't want to judge those extractive activities are actually small scale in the bigger scheme of things. And I don't want to judge the locals and saying like you're destroying the environment, so and so. But this is where they live, and they have to function within where they live. But there are other bigger extractive activities with bigger impact, not only in the locality of the PPLS, but also in the towns surrounding it, in the general environment on a bigger scale. You have quarrying. In Peñablanca, there is a lot of quarrying going on, especially in Dodan, where there are huge quarries that are actually changing the landscape. So here is the main road, and you're seeing here, these are all quarries. So the provincial government actually came up with this effort, but there is such a demand for gravel because later you will see the impact of road construction. I'll show you a slide later. No? So my parents' house is along the highway in Peñablanca, and I tell you, if you sit on the veranda, it's like every 2 seconds there's a truck passing by, coming from the quarry. So this has changed the course of the river. It impacts the ecosystem, and it impacts, of course, the people living around the riverbeds. So for me, those are more serious extractive activities. Although, of course, cumulatively, small extractive activities also matter. So I discovered, when I was preparing for this talk, I discovered this wonderful website, Ma'am Emma, called the Digital Observatory for Protected Areas, Explorer. So DOPA Explorer. I don't know if you're playing off Dora the Explorer, but it's wonderful. So you choose any protected area on Earth, and it will zoom in on that, and then it will give you whatever data you want. There's a lot of data to choose from. It needs to be updated. It only goes up to 2015, at best 2019, but it's still great because it's a good basis, no? So like here, it's showing in this map. This is the Peñablanca Protected. This is the PPLS here. So remember I mentioned Alahiban and Agkargan. So Dr. Jalsita, you're familiar with this. Calao Cave is here. When we go down the river through Mororan, we go here, and then we stop at Agkargan, and that's where we swim and we have picnics and all. Rarely does anyone go around this bend So tourism usually stops here because the water here is kind of heavily flowing. And then on the hill here is Alahiban, where you can hike from here and you can see the sea of clouds if you go early enough in the day. So what it's showing you here is the population density in red. Oh, sorry. So you're now seeing population density here and increasing, so the pink here. I just want to point out that when I was growing up, yesterday, I'm just kidding, 40 years ago, to get to this area, you had to hike about 8 hours. You had to cross the river at least 3 times. There were no roads. But now there are roads going into what we used to call inner barangays. And now you can just get there within a few minutes. So now you have a population developing within this area in what used to be called the inner barangays. This is the car system right here. And here is some more fantastic information from DOPA, where it's showing the anthropogenic pressures on the area. So here, you're looking at the pressure of agriculture and built up. Built up. So there's no pressure really for built up because there are no big buildings in the area. And then your population here. And then look, here you have roads and built up in the unprotected buffer. So really agriculture, as you're seeing here, it has a big impact on the area. Aside from extractive activities, agriculture is also one of the factors that impact the natural heritage, which is the PPLS. So I'd like to show you here, what I'm showing you here is a screenshot I took of Google Earth. And so here, nowadays, before you used to have to drive up here to go to the Calao Resort here across the river. But nowadays, there's a road that goes all the way down to the foot of the cave. And then you go down a few steps to take a boat ride up to Mororan if you're a tourist, and then you stop here and you have your picnic here. Or if you're hiking, you're up there, you're coming from this other area. So this is where the tourists usually go. Now, I'd like to show you here now, this is called Lagum. In Ibanag or in Itawis, it's called inside. So what we used to call inner barangays. And as you can see, it is now a deforested area with a lot of agricultural activity going on. So the caves are within this. There's the North Formation, and then the South Formation of the Peñablanca limestone, Calao limestone formation. And then this is the Pinakanawan River. It flows down from here, down there, and it goes all the way down to Tuguegarao, where it meets with the Cagayan River in Tuguegarao, and we'll show you that slide in a while. So as you can see, human population and migration into the interior barangays have brought, of course, with them agriculture. And that has its impact on the river, on the ecology, on the biodiversity. I actually worry about the quality of the water now here, because now with communities here and the sanitation and drainage and sewerage and all of that, I'm very concerned about the quality of the water here. Although I was there a week ago, and it's pretty beautiful still. So, going now to inadequate conservation. Actually, there's a question mark. Inadequate conservation. Usually, conservation is mandated by law, right? Are we lacking in laws? We have a long history of having laws for the protection of the PPLS, starting from 1934, when it was established as a national park, all the way down to 2018, when it's finally included in the E-LIPAS Act, and it's now called the Peñablanca Protected Landscape and Seascape. So, as you can see, there's no shortage on law saying that it's a protected area, guys. However, as we are living in a universe that is forever changing and evolution is happening, nothing is static. There is no such thing as stasis. You will see in the 1940 Proclamation 584, establishing Ascalao Forest Reserve for forest protection, timber production at that time was part of the proclamation. So things have changed, and things do change through the years. It's a developing story, just like everything else in this world. Your life is a developing story. You're all part of this system. So, Calao Cave PPLS is a system, and even the management of it is an evolving system and has to evolve with the times, with the milieu, with the changes that come with the population, the changes that come with the times, the needs of the people. So it's not static. Rules, management strategies have to change, have to adapt with the changing times and needs. Okay, so here's I took this screenshot of the news from the government that new law declares 5 Cagayan Valley protected areas as national parks. And this specific area here, I highlighted it, and it says, under the E-LIPAS, the Protected Area Management Board now includes the Department of Environment Regional Director, who's actually the head of PAMB, but a non-voting entity. Governor, representative to governor, district representative, mayor, barangay. For PPLS, it's barangays. It's 18 barangays, actually. Remember, because it's the biggest protected landscape and seascape area, second only to Siargao, which is 200-something thousand plus hectares. So NEDA, DOST, PNP, DND, and then of course your interest groups, NGOs. So I highlighted this. The PAMB is the governing body of a protected area. So right now, the PAMB of PPLS is less than 40, and 19 votes belong to the local executive and the barangays put together. So put together, they are a super majority, and anything can be decided by them voting as one. Again, I'm not here to accuse anyone. I'm here to just inspire questions. I don't want to offend anyone. I'm here to inspire questions. So, here is the riverbed in 2023. So if you're at the foot of the cave, you're looking across the river, and this is the riverbed that's been there since I was 2 years old, and most definitely before that. I had a picture here with Evangeline Pascual, when I was 4 years old. And then if you're standing here, this is what it looks like. You're looking across the river, the cave is somewhere here. And this is this part here. So it's beautiful I think I took this in June of 2023 when I went there with Director General Jeremy Barnes of the National Museum. Okay, so remember, this is a protected area. Anything that happens within this area has to go through PAMB,
has to go through DENR heading the PAMB. Fast forward to 2025. This was a few days ago. You're now looking, again, you're looking at this thing. So from across the river, this is now your view. Yes, sir. So what did they do to the aesthetic value of the PPLS? How did a dike this big, and personally, I'm no expert, I think it's overspec, come into being? When this was still being proposed, it was already brought to the attention of the National Museum, and the National Museum asked the DNR about it, and the National Irrigation Authority of Peñablanca. And they said, they got defensive and they said, nothing's happening yet. It's just an idea. But oh boy, when there's political will, how fast can an idea concretize, like literally concretize? So here we are now, 2023, 2025. It's heartbreaking. Well, within 2023 to 2025. Yeah, so this was taken, I took this a few days ago. According to locals, according to my contacts in the culture sector in Cagayan, the locals who live in this area appreciate this dike because when they had a recent series of heavy rains, they did not flood. Okay, but if you do this from here onwards, yeah, okay, I can understand. But did you really have to bring it all the way there? Really? So I'm just asking questions, huh? And does it really have to be that high? Anyway, maybe I'm thinking maybe there is a lack of communication among the stakeholders about how to manage natural heritage and how to protect the burgeoning population that is vulnerable to the ravages of climate, of weather, like typhoons. But then again, you know, prior to the intensive logging that was done in the 1960s, 1970s, there were a lot of trees to absorb moisture, but nowadays that's of course a lot less. And the immediate effect of that kind of exploitation of the environment is of course felt immediately and directly by the people directly downriver from Peñablanca. This is actually the river when the river is quite big because of heavy rains. And then this is what happens to Tuguegarao when there are heavy rains, because Tuguegarao is actually in the confluence of two rivers, the huge Cagayan River, which is it's not the biggest river system in the whole Philippines, and then the Pinakanawan River. So what you're seeing here in this slide is the direct effect of flooding and the consequences of extractive activities and environmental degradation, mismanagement of natural heritage, and probably more disaster resilience planning needed. So I really don't know how to solve the problem. I'm not an expert in environmental issues, but I do have a proposal that maybe would work because we were able to apply this in my PhD. I developed a system for transforming heritage into archaeological materials into cultural heritage, where I acknowledge that,
we are functioning within this context of economic, social, political, and environmental aspects and issues. So we, the locals, the authorities, all of us, this is our context. We live within this context. We function within this context. So these affect our decisions, well, of the decision makers. And who are the I also identified, I wanted to identify the stakeholders who are composed of, who is composed of the general public, the academe, which is us, the government, interest groups, media, and even international entities like National Geographic, etc. And then move on to this. On top of this, I layered a mindset, a suggested mindset of mutual respect, collaboration, the spirit of collaboration, cooperation, inclusivity, interactiveness, multidisciplinarity, transparency, and accountability. So when you ask for transparency, it's not bullying, it's just asking, it's just accountability. People should not get offended. And then on top of all of this is this cycle of converting. Okay, here, this is still my context from my thesis, no? Converting archaeological heritage, going through this whole cycle until it becomes cultural heritage. And if you layer everything and make it in our context right now, I call it the transformation process because it's transforming natural heritage sites which may have values that are exclusive to individual groups or individuals, and for this you have data and you identify the value and you get more people involved, more stakeholders involved, and you convert the data into information, and then you further develop that into value exchange among groups, among the different stakeholder groups, where you create knowledge and you expand involvement into engagement by involving more groups even, and then you apply the values now to even expand further that engagement into participation of more stakeholders until it becomes natural heritage, where you already have shared values among the different individual stakeholder groups. And that's when it becomes natural heritage for everyone. And that's when it becomes the heritage of everyone. Because we can't save everything. Our contexts are changing. Our population is changing. Our ways of life are changing. Migration patterns are changing. I mean, humans have been doing this through time immemorial, so to speak, and that's how we have beautiful cities deep within the Alps, or that's even how we have the rice terraces. Humans will migrate into wherever they can, for whatever reason, mainly because of resources. When it's here, it's all individualized. It means something to me, it's different for you, it's different for them, and we're all not talking, so we're all using the environment, we're all exploiting the environment in many different ways. In my way of using it might be disadvantages to you, or your way of using it might be disadvantages to another interest group. However, when we have shared values, because we have interacted, we have communicated, we have developed this wisdom because we work together, then we will have a better way of preserving, of managing. I don't want to use the word preserve because preserve kind of implies something dead in a bottle in formalin, which our natural heritage is not. So it's a developing story. It will continue to be a developing story, and it's up to us how we will manage this natural heritage in a sustainable way into the future, so that the future generations will also enjoy what we have enjoyed. And for me, right now, this model is working In terms of cultural heritage in Cagayan, we've put it to the test and it's working. And I'm thinking maybe if we apply it to natural heritage, it might work too. So thank you very much, and we'll now take questions.
Four chairs to be put here. Isabel, where are they? I want to give you a reading by Newell on the economics. He says, there can be no economy without ecosystems and ecology that sustain it. And I think we have forgotten that our positionality really is to be extractive. We just take and take from the environment. We do not give back. I thought of this, I was discussing with my lead last year. We had 3 major floods. How many of you saw the Carina floods from the Rizal Mountains? The Christine floods in Bicol, because we have developed the flood, the basin, and then the Pepito floods. How did the Pepito floods affect you? So basically what I'm saying, I said, I think we have to rethink the way we do our economic development, that we do not think that ecosystems, like what Mylene has shown, are very crucial to sustaining our social, political, economic, and cultural life, okay? So, I will, because I'll go back to my conference in Bali, there in the, so I'm asking Tanya to manage the panel discussion. We have brilliant people who are very much engaged in the archaeological, anthropological, and sociocultural analysis of this heritage, be it natural heritage, social, political, and economic heritage. So, Doctor, I will read it.
Thank you, Dr. Emma. So, before we go into the questions, I would like to call on Dr. Salcesar to give his reaction to the I will disappear and you get my mic.
Thank you very much, Mylene. Your wonderful lecture called Back Memories I had last year of visiting precisely that site, Calao River, Calao Cave, and Pinakawan River. Pinakanawan River, I'm sorry. Yes, it's really a wonderful experience because there's nothing like it, at least as far as I'm concerned, in the rest of Luzon and Visayas. I've been around, but this wonderful conjunction between river and limestone cave with archaeological dig is really a different experience. Now, I'm concerned about several things. First of all, you mentioned people. I was wondering what expectations of people were, because of course people have to worry about livelihood. My concern first is this: what kind of agriculture are they engaged in? Is it are they planting cornfields, as I heard, or what are they planting?
It's mostly cornfield first, and for feeds. So if you go into the mountains, which we've done in 2019, we did a survey in 2012 of the caves that had drawings, and there were already a lot of cornfields even in the mountains then. And in 2019, it was even more than that. Now there was corn growing on rocks, So apparently they use a chemical that kills off all the vegetation, and then they're able to plant corn even on rocks. And I said, oh my God, I didn't realize you ate that much corn. And then they said, no, it's for seeds. It's not for you.
Okay, sad to say, and this feeds into the current warnings of the Global Forest Coalition. They're saying that one reason why the forests are being killed or being leveled down is really because of four things: beef, soy, palm oil, and lumber. And the biggest culprit is really beef. So this, I think, is an important insight because it shows us that we can actually exercise agency by examining our own diet. I remind my students in cultural heritage that actually beef eating in the Philippines is actually a relatively recent habit. I mean, it came in, of course, with the standards, but it was really over the past 30 years that the daily consumption of beef has increased. Because when I was growing up, yeah, they ate beef, but only on special occasions. But now, people cannot live without a hamburger. And of course, the super wealthy think they cannot be really wealthy without having roast calves for their feast. So I think we really have to exercise agency by examining our own lives. I mean, this addiction to beef is really dangerous for the planet. So I think it's definitely dangerous for Calayan Valley. The other thing I wanted to ask is this: I think the engagement into the community in terms of ecosystems that's really ongoing. I think there's a lot of expectation that the way to control floods is through dikes. But I think there's an emerging consensus right now among environmental specialists that in fact it's better to let parts of the fields be flooded instead of trying to control the course of the river, because it actually makes the rivers go deeper, and it makes the rivers actually more violent. So it's better to let the rivers flood particular parts of the field. But of course, the community has to learn about these new insights of environmental specialists.
I'd also like to point out, sir, that a lot of the people who are affected by floods, especially there in that area, they actually live in the river delta where they shouldn't be living. Yeah. So, yeah.
That is a problem. I also, regarding the management plan, I was paying attention to the Brink movement in South America. They're critical of capitalism because of its extractive quality, as well as the fact that it produces inequity. But I think what they're doing with particular nature reserves is that, okay, so tourism comes in, but they realize that tourism itself can be dangerous if allowed to flourish on a massive scale. So what they do is they try to limit the amount of tourists coming in, so you get people who really stay longer and who really appreciate nature. Moreover, they make sure also that local people benefit. Because generally the problem with tourism is that, okay, there's money coming in, but it's really tour operators from the outside to benefit. So they make sure that some of the profits remain there in the form of higher wages for the people, and in the form also of investment in protecting the environment. So these might be things to keep in mind, because yes, I realize that tourism can provide a counterbalance to this vegetation with lumber and lumber extraction and with cornfield production, but tourism itself can be dangerous if practiced on a massive scale. Finally, I would suggest, I don't know how it's being done. I think it's good also to do the dialogue in the vernacular. Because, as you said, in English, preservation is really so bad. That's why once you do it, I prefer to use Tagalog when I when I'm speaking with people about heritage, because conservation, preservation are such a dead word. But in Tagalog, we like to use the word na pangangalagaan, taking care of. I think people can appreciate it much better. So I think we have to pay attention to the cultural divide between us specialists and the general population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Butch. Will you stay with us here on the stage? And may I call on Dr. Pavlik to give his reaction to the...
Yes, thank you. Shall I also stand up or just okay, that's very complete. Oh, please join us, Pamela. Hey. So, hello, and first of all, thank you so much, Mylene, for this wonderful and eye-opening, actually also slightly disturbing presentation. I had no idea it looks like that now. So yeah, there's quite a lot to think about and a lot to worry about. I remember the first time I came to Peñablanca must have been in 1996. That was at the time with the people from the National Museum, you know, with Willy Ronquillo was there, Bonquisson, I think, and that was before all the discoveries were made in Callao. So Callao was one of a number, actually quite a high number of caves and cave sites that the National Museum had explored and mapped over the years. And I found it was a bit of an enchanted place. So opposite of Callao Cave, on the other side of the Pinacanawan River, was that resort, or is that resort, which was, if I remember, already a bit dilapidated back then. Nevertheless, the National Museum had a building there, a station where we stayed overnight, and from there we would do our tours, and then we would come back in the years. I think the last time I was there must have been early 2018. And not so much has changed during that time. I noticed a few things. One was, of course, we would also go to the bat cave and watch the bats come out, and really by the clock you would have this immense amount of bats flying out of the cave. But I noticed the first time, I was counting the time, and the first time it was in the range of 30 plus minutes that would continuously go out of that cave. In 27, it was down to 12 minutes. So it was still a large number of bats, but much less than it used to be in the late 90s. So I hope the population of bats has recovered in the meantime. But it was, even then, even if it was only 10 minutes, it's an awesome sight. And it's one of the tourist attractions, so not only Callao. I think more tourists were interested in the bat cave and were interested in kayaking and the river. I found it back then, the few days I was spending there, as a relatively minimal invasive tourism, and the area looked to me rather pristine. So now I'm quite concerned about what they are doing there and about that massive dike they constructed. And so what I'm also wondering is, well, if Callao Cave, who is such a renowned cave and a protected site on a national level and is an internationally recognized monument, how about all those other many caves that are not in the focus but are likewise important archaeological and important cultural heritage sites?
Thank you, Alfred. As you know, as Alfred knows and Richard here, there are a few caves in that limestone system that are archaeologically important. And Callao itself, Callao Cave, when it was developed in 1972, to build that chapel inside, I was told by Mandy Mijares that
a meter of sediment was scraped off to clear that area, and that sediment contained archaeological material that was never studied and was discarded. So this is how things were at that point in time. In the 80s, there's a cave under cave. It's called Shera Cave. It's not an archaeological cave, but it's beautiful. And when it was opened, I was then part of SMOC, the Sierra Madre outdoor club. And when it was first opened, we found a lot of stalactites chopped off. So someone was actually selling the stalactites. Someone was exporting them somewhere. So that cave has since been fenced off with an iron fence, and now you need permission to enter it. It's really beautiful. It's pristine. It still has a wall that's really white, and the crystal is still uncorrupted. So you have to have a guide, and you have to have a hard hat to get into that cave. So there are a lot more of those caves within the system. What Dr. Jalcita mentioned earlier, tourism is dangerous, right? And I agree with you. Unbridled tourism is dangerous, both for the environment and socially. It has its social impacts, like the stories that you get from Boracay and all of these places. But in Calao, this has never, that would be a nice problem to deal with. Although it was historically the top tourist attraction in Cagayan, I don't think it ever had that problem of over-tourism, except the local tourists would flock to Calao during Holy Week, and the major concern is like the trash that they leave behind. So now that there are so many other, there are many other developing tourist attractions in Cagayan, Calao is not anymore the top place to visit, but it's still a major tourist attraction. Actually, the human impact is not really from tourism, but it's more from infrastructure projects such as what I've shown during in my slides.
Okay, so now we open the floor for questions. We start here with Dr. Porio.
As I said earlier, we have just looked at nature and natural capital as to be extracted. And that's why I said to the students here, Red Newell's work on looking that no economy can be sustained without the ecosystem embedded. So I'm wondering about the debates and about economy. When I was in Ramang, that's a UNESCO heritage site in Sulawesi, part of the earnings or income is the guano, the fertilizer from the cave, and they process it, and so I'm wondering in Calao Cave, and you were saying about it takes 20 minutes for the bats to go out. So who's gathering the guano and processing the fertilizer in the cave, and who's making money out?
Okay, thank you for asking the question, Emma. When I was growing up, in that bat cave, there was a chute going down, and there was actually a company mining the guano. And that stopped in the 90s. I have no idea. I have to... Oh yeah, they are. When actually, it was there for a long time, even after they ceased operation. So, things like that, they don't filter down to the locals. It's just the companies and, yeah. So, exactly. So the locals are so disconnected from from the ecosystem. That's why they don't understand how it works. They don't understand their role within that ecosystem in managing that ecosystem and keeping it sustainable. I think that's where the disconnect lies.
Okay, so we continue maybe here, also to audience. Any other question? Not? Then we wait for the flash of the online audience.
Can I say something? While you're waiting for questions, if there are any, I think what we can do as the academe, I mean, we're here, we're not there, we're talking about this, but we're not there, we're not directly communicating with the locals. If we collaborate with local educational institutions or institutions of higher education, then maybe we can keep the conversation going and get the locals involved and more aware of what needs to be done with the natural heritage and how this affects them and what pivotal role they actually have should they decide to actively participate in the conversation. But we need to take it out of this hall and bring it there to Cagayan, to Tugigaraw, to Peñablanca, to wherever we would like to get the conversation started on how to sustainably manage natural heritage. It really boils down, and I think the biggest stakeholder, the stakeholder group with the most impact would be the locals. So we need to take this conversation out of this hall and out there into Peñablanca and other localities where it is needed. So this is where Asia comes in. Let's make those programs and collaboration with other institutions.
I was just thinking, my dean, academic institutions that are directly involved there would be St. Paul University or St. Louis. Could they not be also involved to provide continuity because political administrations come and go, but the academic institutions remain. And also they are also, in a sense, more in touch with the people because and also they can provide training programs.
A very important institution that can be tapped as a partner is the Cagayan State University because it's an agricultural university. They have 7 campuses around the province. So they're actually there on the ground and they're in agriculture mostly.
Regarding tourism, yeah, I was when you first introduced me to Calaupe and you mentioned the tourism program of the provincial government, I was excited because that really provides a counterbalance to the desire of the mayor to extract to open more cornfields so that corn can be raised for feed. But on second thought, I was thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, I was very happy about the infrastructure being laid by the provincial government for tourism, but this early, I think we have to be careful already what kind of tourism we want to promote. I mean, there's mass tourism, there's also quality tourism.
Okay, we have one question out of the online audience. I will just read it. Can we request for the presentation? Before conducting this case study, have you asked permission from the PPLS funding?
Okay, so when I say case study, we're just using this as a case study for today. I did not go there to conduct a lengthy case study. So, no, I did not do that. This is just like a pilot model, or this is a specific case that we want to study for today in this context. I did not go there to extract anything, so I did not need to do that.
Okay, thank you, Marlene. Any other questions? Yeah, I have also a question concerning, because you said integrating the community. But what about also elevating local scholars? Local scholars, I mean, usually we, as you were talking about discussions and maybe community discussions, but it would be quite useful to have people on the ground and they can defend their own heritage there.
Yeah, absolutely, Tanya. Thank you for that comment and question. It's really important to have local scholars involved, especially those who are from those areas. And in terms of conversations on the ground, historically I've had no problems conducting those because everyone is receptive. Everyone just really wants to communicate with each other. I've had no problems dealing with the mayor and the vice mayor and the local officials. I've had no problems dealing with provincial yeah. So everyone, I think there's a willingness for all stakeholders to sit down and talk it out. It's just that it just needs to get organized. And then again, I guess to run or to be the backbone of that conversation, someone needs to be a backbone of that conversation, as Dr. Jalcita pointed out, because the academe is the most stable, so to speak. It doesn't change every 3 years or potentially change every 3 years. Then that's where the local scholars could come in to actually be the backbone of this hopefully continuing conversation on how to manage the natural heritage.
Okay, thank you, Mylene. And yes, please.
Hello. Hi, you mentioned earlier that. Hello, I'm Christina. I'm CAD Sociology, and a question I have is, earlier you mentioned that the locals themselves, they also seem to struggle understanding their relationship to the environment. So, how can you communicate issues relating to natural heritage to those living outside of the area, so that we can also feel personally responsible taking care of these natural sites?
Thank you. So I didn't say struggle. What I said is they don't understand their role in the management of in the sustainable management of the natural heritage. So again, like I said, we really need to take the conversations out of the classrooms, out of the boardrooms, out of the offices of government, and really involve the locals and work with the locals. I'll use as an example what we're doing now with, it's not natural heritage, it's cultural heritage, what we're doing now with the Cagayan Museum. So the director, Kevin Baclig, was appointed during the pandemic, and he was before that president of the Cagayan Heritage Conservation Society. So they're young people, they're very active in history and culture, and they applied this energy to the culture sector of Cagayan and Tuguegarao. And now the museum is such an active and vibrant venue for discussions on culture and exhibits and things like this. So this alone has shown us that if we take it to the grassroots, if we take the conversations to the grassroots, we involve them, we give them risk. They're in, they have skin in the game. They also have their contribution, and then they have their benefits. Then in that way, we can actually make them understand how crucial their role is in carrying out the sustainable management of natural heritage. Thank you. Answer the question.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I will give the word to Dr. Poyo again.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's really wonderful. I was telling Dr. Navarra that we should do this kind of conversation and to it will, looking at natural capital and looking at heritage and looking at conservation, and I would say along conservation is the extraction and the displacement of the people. It unites anthropology and sociology, archaeology, physical, and then the concerns of sociology. So I like this time, and I really think that we have to think differently now in the ways we use the resources or extract, or the ways that we do not care about nature. I'm announcing one of the things that we're doing is that last Sunday I negotiated with Toto Malvar, the Lux and Domino awardee. He will organize all Lux and Domino awardees of Ateneo and invite there because we're planning. I told them, rich Filipinos go to Camino Santiago. They walk there, pay millions to them. So I asked Toto Malvar, Mount Puro Nature Reserve is 250 hectares. We have restored that for the past 35 years. So I challenged them to create a Camino Mount Puro. Is the beginning, and then perhaps a Camino Sierra Madre that will teach people to care for the mountains and to plant and grow. You just don't plant because studies in the DNR show that when you just plant, the survival rate is almost zero. Okay, so we have to change our notion of growing a tree, caring for nature, not just, a demonstration of our community spirit by nature. So on Easter Sunday, my class and Mount Poro is organizing a mass of creation and a walk with nature on Easter Sunday. So I'm announcing that. If any one of you are interested, please, tell the department and that stuff. So, thank you very much for coming, and I really hope that these kinds of conversations in the classroom, in the school, really interrogate the major challenges that we are facing now as a people, the government, the different sectors. That in my lectures here and abroad, I always say that the current times that we are facing, only collaboration will save us from damnation. Okay, so we do not want to be damned. We hold our hand, and we have to start caring for our environment, starting with how we consume our resources, water, energy, and other kinds of resources. So we will have, unless there are, burning issues you want to say.
Can I just say one last thing? Since you brought up Mount Puro, Mount Emma, I visited that during the pandemic. We would go, since we couldn't travel, we would go to Masumi, where we learned a lot actually about management of natural heritage and their challenges. And then Mount Puro. And there are a lot of other caves that are being used as tourist spots. That's another thing. A lot of the locals or even the local government different idea of tourism and conservation and management. One cave we went to is was used for a set in a movie, and they sprayed glitter paint on the stalactites.
The locals have to
So-
be vigilant of their environment.
I think there's a lot to talk about and to do. I think there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done.
Because, for example, I don't think many people know that Mount Puro has 9 Dumagat communities. And Kakanor was telling me the other time I was there that after Reming, they gathered fallen trees to repair their houses. You know what? They got imprisoned by DNR because you didn't ask for a permit. So, in fact, I was telling them that we have to change the way we look at nature and mountains and forests. In Thailand, people guard the forest because they derive their food, medicine, and others. Of course, it helps that we have Buddhist priests who are really committed to that. But what I'm basically saying to all the young and old and not so young people is that we have to shift our ways of thinking and doing, if at all our life in this earth will change, right? Yeah, so we will now have any more additions. We will have a picture taking first of the first of the Millie's come. Let's have the picture of Millie, and then after that, the audience. Come Millie. Stand on the other side, so they'll stand on the other side and balance. You know, I told Millie, we have to know about choreography of space. You know, I'm a good disciple of Lising, production of space. Yeah. Okay. We are the moderators. And the audience, please, the students, we do want to have memory of you. Come. Felix, come. You know, Felix was a graduate student when I was chair. MA Anthropology, how come? Okay, come. You see, we put this in the vault and store. 10 years from now, we'll look at your thing and then compare it. This is Celine, my statistical expert, and run all my social vulnerability analysis. So anyone who loves numbers, come to me. Thank you. Come on, it's a millennial skill. It's a millennial skill. Hey guys, quit. Leo, mag-selfie kayo. Okay. Okay, the other side, Leo. Balance. Maano ang barko. Malunod ang barko. Next time, March, we will have Joy Del Monte, forgot to announce it. We will have Joy Del Monte and Dr. Teresa Atienza, the president of, and then we'll have that theme, March 19, hopefully. The theme is urban gardening, food security and community resilience.